A very good afternoon to everyone present today. Today we'll be talking in terms of international marketing. So we will start first with block one, that is international marketing environment. In this, we will be looking primarily at international marketing, nature and scope today. That is unit one. So let us look at this in more detail. So, in terms of international marketing environment, we have three units in block one. The first one is unit one, international marketing nature and scope, which we'll be covering today. And we'll be following this up with international marketing environment analysis. And then the third unit, entering international markets, before we go into the next session. So I hope you are all able to hear me and see the visuals. So let us look at Unit 1. In terms of Unit 1, if you see the objectives, it is to understand the concept and differentiate between domestic marketing and international marketing. We'll also be understanding the reasons why companies choose to go for international marketing, the benefits, the merits, and finally the barriers to going further. So, moving on to the introduction, it is very important to understand that today it is no more in terms of a narrow, small market or a local or domestic market. Companies more and more are looking at a global market. So, when we talk in terms of global market, that is beyond the shores of a particular company, the opportunities that are being presented to a company are endless because you are expanding the scope of your market and thereby reaching out to new customers. So, other nations of the world can also derive the benefit of the products that you are offering to them. So, in terms of international marketing meaning and scope, two things that we need to understand. First is the definition. So, going with the most popular definition from American Marketing Association, it talks of international marketing as a multinational process of planning and executing the conception, the pricing, promotion, and distribution of ideas, goods, or services. Fundamentally, the four P's or marketing mix that we talk about. And why is this done? So that the goods services are being exchanged to satisfy individual and organizational objectives at the same time. So, if we see in terms of nature and scope of international marketing, first and foremost, we look at access to broader markets. Like we were speaking a few minutes ago, we are no more restricted to our own country or to our own region. Second, there are two sets of uncontrollable variables here. What does it mean? It is very important to understand that in domestic marketing, the marketers have to interact with only one set of uncontrollable variables. Whereas in the case of international organization, you're not only dealing with the rules and regulations of your own country, but also that of the other country where you're exporting or selling your goods or services. So these are the two uncontrollable variables, as the rules and conditions are not within your premises. It requires a broader competence because you need to understand the new market better. A competition increases because you have more players on the international arena. It involves a high risk and challenges. At the same time, there are also certain trade blocks and their impact in marketing your product. We'll talk about them in more detail in the later sessions. So, in terms of features of international marketing, there is a large scale operation that takes place because of the size and nature of your business. So, the second one is there is a predominant presence of MNCs in developed countries. This is very natural because if you are going abroad, that means the country has its own, which is the country where you are selling your products or services. They have their own set of companies which are operating in that area. Not only that, there are other players or other companies from other countries which are also operating in that host country. The third one is international restrictions, which we also call as trade barriers. They can be tariff and non tariff. Definitely, this is an aspect that we'll explore in depth as we go forward. There's also a presence of trading blocks. For example, we talk of a European bloc or an American, North American bloc or an Asian bloc. That is a group of countries or regions which are together making up a specific area of business. Then there is three-phase competition. So, what is the three-phase competition? One is companies which belong to that particular country. Second, there are other suppliers from other countries which are operating in that place. And third is companies from your own country who are also operating in this new place. There are also a lot of regulations that happen through international forums. And what are these? For example, international trade is often regulated by international forums like World Trade Organization and UNCTAD. So they are offering a deep knowledge of the rules and regulations of different forums. So they also help in understanding the guidelines in that particular nation. There is also an international marketing research that is required. You cannot simply jump into selling your products in any country. You need to understand the business, how it works, who are the competitors, what kind of products are being used, what are the trades and regulations that are happening. For example, you take something like from the packaging. There are so many regulations now in terms of the environmental impact and the kind of guidelines for just packaging. So there are multiple things that we need to understand before we simply go into any new area. So that is why international marketing research is very, very important. The next one is also sensitive and flexible because there can be political repercussions, there can be economic reasons, there can be social cultural differences. So we need to adapt to the rules and regulations of that country. At the same time, we also need to understand the context, the socio-cultural environment before we start selling in those companies, in those countries. It's also relatively, understood that when you are talking in terms of the products, even a simple type of marking of whether it is a vegetarian product or a vegan product or a non-vegetarian product, if you are selling food products, for example, is very, very critical. And there are so many regulations which market this and which regulate this. So, advanced technology, which we understand now very well, USA, Japan, and Germany are three countries which are considered generally, high in terms of technology adoption. But at the same time, countries like India and others are also jumping onto the bandwagon, and we are on par with the advanced technology. So it becomes a little easier for us to understand how we should go in terms of not just selling our products, but also using technology for promoting our products. So it's lengthy and time consuming. It's not something that you can just decide overnight and introduce in the market. At the same time, it offers a wide scope and a long term marketing planning. So let us see domestic and international marketing and try to understand a little in terms of the difference between the two. So, in domestic and international marketing, marketing is generally defined as the set of activities which are undertaken by the companies to provide satisfaction to the customers. And how is this done? Through value addition and making good relations with them. And why is this so? So that we improve our brand value, which in turn uh, collaborates and converts to a financial benefit or revenue, to put it simply. So, what is domestic marketing? Domestic marketing is where strategies are employed to attract and influence customers within the political boundaries of a country. Whereas, in terms of international marketing, We are going within the boundaries, but outside the boundaries of our country and selling our products. That is to a different country altogether. So that is international marketing in a very, very simplified manner. So each consumer in within a country, for example, if you take India, there is so much of diversity within the country. But if you talk in terms of how India maps as a country and in terms of a product consumption to say a country like Korea or Japan or Germany or even USA for that matter, there's a wide difference. So that is what we'll need to understand either through our marketing research or by spending some time and meeting the right kind of people and getting a sense of what kind of business is possible and what are the restrictions that are being entailed. So, domestic marketing versus international marketing. As we have been looking at this in the last few minutes, we also need to understand that certain factors play a bigger role when we go internationally. For example, the politics of a country is highly subjective and it is very, very specific to that particular nation. It may not play a major role within our own country, but it will play a major role when you go beyond. So, language and culture, we talked about the socio cultural context. So, that is very, very important. The risk involved, the financial climate. Is it a uniform financial climate which is more seen within your own country, or does it have a higher risk of deferred nature and a variety of financial climate? There is also an aspect of control on the marketing activities, which you are able to do better and more easily within your own domestic market. But there could be other factors like regional, cultural, political factors which may affect international or global marketing. The payment terms, there is also something that is to be considered in a lot of depth. For example, is it going to be paid with some advance, or will the host country be able to pay you in only a lump sum? And is the lump sum being paid at the beginning of your transaction, or is it being paid after the transaction is complete? How is it being paid? Is it through a bank? What kind of terms and conditions are there? What kind of margins are being offered? So there are multiple things that need to be considered. Also, if you see in terms of familiarity, we are not as familiar with an international market as we are with our own domestic market. We may need to take the help of certain agents or certain organizations to market our products, or we may need to set up an entire export division or an international marketing office to offer our products in a different environment. So, these are also factors that we'll be considering in more detail as we go forward. Then, one of the reasons for international marketing is, of course, fundamental to any business, that is profit motive. So, unless we are talking in terms of being able to convert all that effort into monetary benefit for the company, it does not really serve the purpose. The second one is in terms of growth opportunities. What am I looking at in terms of my business when I'm serving domestically, and what is the size that is going to go grow exponentially when I go abroad? So, is it 2x? Is it 3x? How many times am I going to increase my business? So, the competition is something that we have already talked about, government policies and regulations, which are very, very stringent in most countries. There is also an element of monopoly, which is sometimes, a major restriction in entering into certain markets. There can be a monopoly in terms of certain resources or patent rights or technological advantages, product differentiation, etc. Now, all these need to be considered when you are going beyond. There is also something called spin off benefits. What is this? That means that when you're growing internationally, there is also a possibility that your domestic market also grows. There can be multiple reasons for this. First and foremost, it is because you're having an international presence. Customers tend to believe you more, they trust you more because you have a larger presence and you have met certain thresholds before you could start selling your products abroad. At the same time, you have a lot of learnings from the new market, which you try to bring back to your own country. It can be in terms of technology, it can be in terms of product content, it can be in terms of packaging, it can be in terms of value adds that are being and that are being used to enhance your product domestically also. And of course, there is a strategic vision that is in terms of how am I looking at my business growth. Is it only within the country? Am I trying to expand to new markets? Am I trying to add more products to my product line? What kind of marketing mix am I considering at this stage? So there is a lot of future planning that is required before we step into a new market. So in international marketing, there are certain stages. We call it as internalization stages. So these stages have to be met. So what are these stages? So it is not that any company is known as an international um, business. There are some basic stages in the evolutionary process. So what is the first one? The first stage is called as a domestic company. Here, most international companies have their origin as domestic companies. Whether you take it as even closer home, you take as TCS or you take any of Wipro or any of the larger MNCs that are there, they all have a local presence. They have started somewhere and then they have gone beyond the shore. So there is always a local origin to any company, and that is where they are called as domestic companies. This is the early or growth stage one of the company. And after a point in time, it can diversify into new markets, product technologies, and new product lines. And that also means that there is a certain element of market prospect that is being considered for that company. The second one is in terms of an international company. So, what is an international company? International company is normally the second stage. And here, what happens is the company is known as a transitional corporation. What it fundamentally means is the company's orientation is still ethnocentric and marketing strategy is just an extension. So when we say ethnocentric, that means it is rooted deeply within its own country's ethos. What are the socio-cultural constraints or what are the socio-cultural context that is being considered within your domestic market, and fundamentally you're operating in that space and then you're trying to go to a different market as an extension, as a marketing extension. The third stage in the growth process is called a multinational company, or we call it as MNCs, which are very, very well known. So here the orientation shifts from ethnocentric to polycentric. So the international company becomes multinational in many ways. So this could be in terms of responding to the market differences because you're not just offering your own product in an international market as it happens in the case of an international company. What you are trying to do here is go through a three-stage multinational evolution process. That means your strategy is changing. You are looking more in terms of multi domestic. So, what you are offering in your company from your company in your domestic market may not be the same that you are selling in a different market. There could be some product adaptation. We often see this in terms of cars that are being, say, imported to India. There is a certain kind of adaptation that happens. It could be in terms of the kind of roads that we have, the infrastructure we have. So the cars are being adapted to suit the local conditions. It can be weather conditions, it can be geopolitical conditions, it can be the legality and the laws that constrain how much of a product of an automobile can be imported, whether certain automobile parts have to be sourced locally, what are the taxes that are being applied. So all these factors come into consideration. And then the fourth stage is the global transitional corporation. So here, what happens is, as per Keegan, the global company represents stage four, and here it is international in the sense of the evolution of the company. Here, several people are referred to it as a final stage in the development of the corporation. So Keegan says the global company will have either a global marketing strategy or a global sourcing strategy, but not both. So, what it means fundamentally is that I'm not just looking at, say, India as a market. I have my own strategies for, say, if I'm entering into the USA. Or, second, if I'm entering into Africa, then I may want to actually source a lot of resources which are available locally and bring it back to my business and help to develop my product further. So, what Keegan says is it can either be in terms of a global marketing strategy or sourcing globally, but not both. At the same time, what we need to understand is that this company is global in the as accepted format of what is a global corporation. So the transitional corporation is much more than a company. It is not just a matter of sales or investments or operations in multiple countries, but also in terms of what is a dominating market, what are the industries around the world, and trying to integrate all of them into your own product and business. So the benefits of international marketing can be multifold. It is in terms of providing a higher standard of living. Second is in terms of opportunity to specialize in a certain business, in a certain product, in a certain product line. For example, when we talk in terms of Nestle, the first thing that comes into our mind is chocolates or milk or milk products. There are so many aspects to Nestle. It is not just one. But what is the first thought that comes? So that is what we need to understand, that this becomes more or less their specialization, and over and beyond, they go to other products as well. Today, if you see in terms of Amul, has started exporting in a big way. We see local companies like Haldirams, they have started selling, or even Bikaner products, they have started selling a lot of food items globally. So that is also something that needs to be considered. So ensure the rational and optimum utilization of resources both locally and internationally. It also facilitates a rapid industrial growth. There is the benefit of comparative cost and international cooperation and world peace. As more and more companies start spreading their roots around the world, we say it has become a global village. So that means we are all interconnected, either online, offline, or through the our consumption patterns, what kind of products we are consuming day in and day out. So that is also helping in terms of building an environment of international cooperation and world peace. There are also an element of cultural exchange, because when you're going to other countries, you're also trying to understand what is their nature and what is their socio-cultural environment. At the same time, you're carrying your own socio-cultural environment to that specific country. There is also a better utilization of surplus production. A big example of this is in garments business. India is one of the primary countries which supplies garments, apparels to a number of big brands around the world. And if your production line is so strong and stable, then you may want to not only go for more brands, but you may also want to enter into new markets. There is also the benefit of foreign exchange and the expansion to a tertiary sector. So, this is what would be the broad understanding in terms of the benefits of international marketing. The next aspect that we need to understand is in terms of international orientation. So, here the first and foremost thing that we need to understand is what is this international orientation. So Wynne, Douglas, and et al. They provided EPRG approach. What it fundamentally talks about is at the first stage, E stands for ethnocentric orientation. That means home country orientation. So if you are operating from out of India, what is the home country? India is our home country. Second is a polycentric orientation or EPRGP. This talks in terms of the host country orientation. I'm entering into the USA. So, what should be my host country? The USA. So, what is their orientation all about? The third one, that is R, EPRG, regiocentric orientation. That is regional orientation. So, it is not just about USA. We are talking about North America as a general region, or we are talking about Asia as a region, or we are talking about Africa as a region, or Europe. It does not mean that it is representative of a single country. It's a conglomeration of multiple countries which have some similarities, some homogeneity, not all, some levels of homogeneity. And the next one, of course, is the geocentric orientation, that is the world orientation, where I'm truly, going global and offering my products. Let's look at each of them in a little more detail. So, ethnocentric orientation, here it talks about things like a company which sees its similarities in certain markets and assumes that these products and practices that succeeded in the home country will naturally succeed in a host country as well. So, whatever I'm selling here, I'm selling an exactly similar, or you can say duplicate of what I'm selling with in my home country, in the host country as well. That is the new market. So, there's not much of a difference. So, that is why we said these are mostly known as domestic countries. The second one is a polycentric orientation. Here it is the opposite of ethnocentrism. So, what it means is the company begins to understand the importance of inherent differences in overseas market. So it is no more looking from the lens of its own country, but it's looking through the lens of an international business. So here the philosophy is that local personnel and techniques are best suited to deal with local market conditions. So in that case, what I may decide to do is hire a local agent, or I may go for a local distributor for my products, or I might go for a partnership with a local and go for a joint venture. So there are multiple options that are available, and we'll be talking about them in the future units as well. The next one is in terms of regiocentric orientation. Here, I am understanding from a certain broader perspective. So, I'm not narrowing it down to only the host country and what it has to offer, but as a company, we are also trying to understand how that region operates as a whole. We talked about a European bloc, so BLOC bloc. So, when you talk about a European bloc or NATO, North American Trade Organization. So these are blocks which have certain homogeneity or similarity in that specific region. So there is a strategy that has to be integrated across the region as well. So it's no more limited to what I sell in that particular host country, but what I would be able to offer across the entire region. So there is a shift in how the company is thinking in terms of its orientation. And finally, we talk in terms of a geocentric orientation. Here, there is a good synthesis of both ethnocentrism and polycentrism. That means I'm not only recognizing the similarities and dissimilarities in markets and countries where I'm operating, but I'm also considering how my country has its sociocentric context in place, and also trying to understand how, as a company, we are able to respond to local needs and wants of that particular area as well. So, a lot of adoption of new practices is required. At the same time, a lot of adaptation of a product is also required to be able to fit into the new market or a larger world space. To sum up, the ethnocentric company is centralized in its marketing management, whereas a polycentric company, as we know, is decentralized. Now, let us look at multinational companies or MNCs, as we know more. So, a multinational company is one which is incorporated in one country. That means it is the home country, and whose operations extend beyond the home country and which carries on business in other countries. That is the host countries. So, I start my business in home country. I am based out of my home country, but I am selling to multiple other countries which are called as the host countries. So here, what we need to understand is that there are certain features of MNC that we need to understand in a lot of detail. The first one is it requires huge assets and turnover. So because the operations are on a global business, MNCs have huge physical and financial assets. Whether they own it or they have rented it out, they have leased it out, they still need to have a lot of assets in terms of manpower, in terms of money, and in terms of other resources as well, wherever they are operating. The second is in terms of unity of control. So the MNCs are able to control the business activities from a centralized location, and that is the head office, and operate on a global scale. The third one is in terms of economic power. So MNCs are considered as powerful economic entities. They keep on adding their economic power through constant mergers and acquisitions of companies on host countries. The next one is they are very quick at adopting advanced technologies. Most of the MNCs have their companies in command. How? Through technology. They employ intensive technology. So it could be in terms of production, or manufacturing. It could be in terms of marketing. It could be in terms of R&D as well. So research and development also plays a critical role. Of course, there is better quality of products because you're abiding by just not your home country's laws and regulations, but you also have to abide by the host country's regulations as well. Food, we said, or medicines are two big examples of such regulations. So, professional management, because it cannot be run by a pop and mom kind of a setup, it has to have people who are well versed in their line of work and who are able to expand the company aggressively across markets. So that also leads us to the last point, that is aggressive marketing. So there are certain advantages. Of course, there is an increase in the investment level. The transnational companies have become vehicles for transfer of technology to other countries, particularly developing countries. They also kindle a managerial revolution because more professional environment is being created. So MNCs enable the host countries to increase their exports and decrease their import requirements. They also work to capitalize the cost of factors of production around the world, and they are also an effective means of integrating national economies. There are also certain demerits that need to be understood. It could be in terms of an MNC which has a primary motive of profit, which is fundamental to its very existence. This can also be sometimes considered harmful to the economy and development of a new country. new business country. So the presence of MNCs can also restrict competition because they have sometimes a monopoly or a duopoly or monopolistic competition, which will restrict the kind of entry of new companies. So they also charge heavy fees and charges in their host countries. So this also becomes a disadvantage, particularly if they move all the profits back to their home country. So there is a lot of outflow from the host country to the home country in terms of financial outlay and revenue. So, what are the barriers in international marketing? There can be a political and legal difference. For example, the political and legal environment of foreign markets is different from that of the domestic. As we have understood by now, there are political and legal environments that are being considered both from a home country point of view and a host country point of view. So, a company has to consider both in tandem before it goes into any new market. There's also a cultural difference, an economic difference. It is not an economic difference in terms of just a difference in currency. It could also be in terms of the tariffs. Of late, we have seen a lot of tariffs being levied, say, by the US on various companies and countries, particularly from where they are importing to the US. So there is a lot of change that is happening. Some of the countries, say like India, also Mexico or China, also have a lot of tariffs that they levy, particularly on certain products, and which are sometimes higher than what other nations are, are setting as a benchmark. So it becomes, say, textiles or food or clothing, apparel, or automobiles. It may become, or even some parts, computer parts. It can be a lot more expensive to import them from some of these countries vis-a-vis some other countries which have a lower tariff. So there is, of course, a difference in the currency unit. So that means that there some money is being lost in that, transition from one currency to another currency. So when you are looking in terms of how is the rupee holding out in terms of a US dollar, we have seen that it has gone in a upward trend of late, which is not necessarily the best thing that can happen. So, differences in language we have seen, marketing infrastructure. There is also a trade restriction, which we have talked about already. There's a high cost of distance because I need to use some either sea. That means I need to hire either half a container or a full container, depending on my product. If I'm shipping through sea vis-a-vis air, so there are these aspects that need to be considered also. So in the end, we can sum up and say that international marketing involves the firm in making one or more marketing mix decisions across national boundaries. So, in the most complex level, it involves the firm in establishing manufacturing facilities overseas and coordinating marketing strategies across the globe. So, domestic marketing is when communication of goods and services is being offered um, in multiple ways. So, what it also means that is that I'm no more restricting my business to what I'm offering in my own country, which is the home country, but I'm also looking at it in terms of my host country, who is actually uh, importing my goods and services. So it can be in terms of push factors, which are reactive and which make companies promote the company's products to internalize them within that country, or it can be also a pull process where certain countries invite your products because it has a certain level of quality and technology associated with it. for example, semiconductors. So it's also important to understand that Wynne Douglas and Perlmutter have talked about the EPRG approach in analyzing the degree and nature of involvement in international business. And this involves four stages of attitudes and orientation towards international orientation. So E talks of ethnocentric orientation, P talks of polycentric orientation, R talks in terms of regiocentric orientation, and finally we have G, which is the geocentric orientation. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. I hope if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll meet you in the next class and enjoy your journey in the academic world. Thank you. I'm Kolla Krishna Madhavi. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.